Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I have my brother Alexander Benedict with me, and a very good friend of mine. And today we wanted to discuss um, an important topic, and that topic is obesity and the crisis and really the epidemic it's become in our culture, and sort of the acceptance of it and the encouragement of this lifestyle. So, yeah, I want to sort of outline how I think um, we have to this point, and then Alex, I want you to share also afterwards your insight in things that we can do to help fix this issue and encourage people to not only accept responsibility if it's an issue in their life, but to encourage people to be healthy because it's important. And really our bodies are temples anyways, so we need to treat them as such. So um, so here's how I think this started, man. Is really fast food has been around for quite a while, so we can't just blame fast food.
Yeah,
But 30 or 40 years ago, the obesity percentage in adults in the U.S. was like 15%. Now it's like 35 or 40%, and I don't know exact percentage, but it's right in there. So we've um, over doubled the percentage with really the same brands of fast food and all that junk. So we can't just blame that. But I think there's two reasons people are open. And one is um, the lack of discipline, which is on the consumption side, right? And then laziness, which is more like the physical side. Um, and I think both of those things have been affected in a negative way. So when it comes to food, like convenience, um, our lifestyles and the way that we live and how we eat has changed on basically how we store our food and how we utilize it for energy. And then when you combine that with like the advancement in technology, we've just gotten lazier. I mean, there's no two ways around it. Like, not only has technology enabled us to become lazier, but we also just get addicted to technology and we don't want to do things. So rather than, when I was young, dude, we had a lot, and literally all summer long, we would spend like basically from 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning to sunset playing, soccer, football, kickball,
yeah,
dodgeball, capture the flag, whatever you name it. And now kids are playing video games, adults are scrolling on Instagram, and I'm not necessarily saying those things are awful, but anything and that's used excessively is. So here we are, and the bigger issue, not only are we here, but this movement that's like basically swept the country on fat acceptance and that health is at every size. And there's two extremes. I am not telling people to look like a supermodel and be anorexic. I am not telling guys they have to look like Arnold, because they won't. But we can't encourage people that when you're 250 pounds, 350 pounds overweight, that look, people say because you don't have any diseases or any of that, you're healthy. No, you just haven't died yet. When I mean, really. So, like, if someone's
yeah,
been smoking cigarettes for 20 years and they don't have cancer, you just don't have cancer yet. That doesn't mean what you're doing is healthy. And it's the same thing with obesity. Like, just because you don't have diabetes, just because you don't have cholesterol problems, you just haven't gotten them yet. So, anyways, like the whole reason I bring that up, man, is because I've been there as far as being overweight, and I want to speak truth to people and wake people up, because the biggest issue that we're having right now is everyone is offended by everything, and we need to somehow work our way around that and come to reality. And I want to encourage people, and I know you do as well, on how to lead a healthy life, and encourage people around them to. And really what we can avoid as far as like in the diet industry and the bogus, fads that are going around, and what works, what people need to do. So I don't know. So what's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I guess one there are several things that kind of jumped out as you're talking, because I know I have even fallen into the mindset that I'll kind of excuse myself and excuse my eating at times because, and this was especially bad, it would have been the summer of 2017, because I was competing in Highland Games, and um, don't really need to go into that, but I mean, the average professional thrower is 6'4" and 285. And these guys aren't like just chunky. I mean, they need to be explosive athletes. They're freaks for sure. And amateurs, I mean, size matters.
In this
So
case,
for me, what's that?
I said yes in this case.
Yes. So for me, I was like, oh man, I just need to get bigger, I need to get bigger, I need to get bigger, and would eat anything and everything. And before I knew it, I'm probably like 20, 25 pounds overweight. And I can't figure out why I feel crappy, and why I feel lethargic and don't want to do anything. And so as you're talking and talking about people that are maybe 100, 150 pounds overweight, we're talking about them. We're also talking about people that are 30 or 40 pounds overweight and what they can do to make improvements, because it's maybe not as bad, but it's still not healthy. Um, so that's one thing that I wanted to clarify, that if you know for a fact that you're 30 or 40 pounds overweight, or even 25 for smaller people, like shorter people, this is also addressing you. The health concerns maybe aren't as serious, but they're still prevalent. They still exist. It's maybe not as extreme as someone that's carrying around an extra 100 pounds of adipose tissue that's not helping them in any way other than insulating them. Um, so that's one thing for sure. I think the fact that you touched on the discipline is huge. Um, there's kind of the two sides of the coin, because we can't blame fast food, and I'm not a fan of it, but I mean, my grandfather was a very hard worker and loves McDonald's, but he's like 95% of the time eats pretty good. So if he wants to go get a burger once every 2 or 3 weeks, that's not a big deal. That's not what we're talking about either, because
Yeah.
that's you're
Yep.
we'll kind of get into this, but like you're winning more days than you're losing if that's the case. But I know that the discipline side of it is where most of us are lacking, because we don't have someone that's waking us up at 4 in the morning, or we're not an agrarian culture anymore that needs to get up and do physical work. Or even, and that may have been 100, 150 years ago, but even 50 years ago, we're not working as mechanics. We're not working as concrete like pourers. We're not roofing houses. And that I don't think that people understand how little physical activity you need to balance like just a moderate diet. It doesn't need to be extreme. It doesn't need to be crazy. Um, but we absolutely are extremely lazy and pretty sedentary as a nation. You have to kind of search pretty hard for someone that is moderately active during the day, and then when they get home, whether it's with their kids or with their family, they're also able to play in the yard, because there are so many people that I've worked with that um, it's one or the other, because it's something essentially something gets out of balance. Yeah, I could definitely go down that rabbit trail for a long time, but the discipline side of it I think is huge because we only have so much willpower during the, like, on any given day. We only have so much willpower, and most of us use most of our the majority of people use most of our willpower to get ourselves up out of bed and go to work. As sad as that is, we don't really have much more willpower after we've been burning it for 10 hours, like during the workday, to then also be making awesome dietary choices. And fast food is a good option. It's easy, it's convenient, and that's the culture that over the last, especially the last 20 years, that's the culture that we've become.
Yeah. So for me, we've gotten to this point, and I think that now that we're here as a culture, we want instant gratification. And so we're drawn to these diets and to these fads that give us that. And guess what? It's not working, clearly, because we continue to increase the percentage of people who are overweight and obese, but yet there's more and more diets out there. So it's just, there's no, there's a common denominator. It's not working. So for me, I want to encourage people, like, that a lot of these, even programs, like, not only that, but not only do we want instant gratification, but on the other side of the token, like, we can't commit. And that's the other issue. And, you and I have discussed that, but really what it takes at the end of the day is eat well and be physically active, and do that over a long period of time. I'm not telling people to run 5 miles a day. I'm not telling people they have to eat broccoli and chicken breast every day. Just eat pretty good and be pretty physically active. Do that for a year, and you will see results. And if you don't, adjust accordingly. And that's something that I know, it's probably a little bit more on, expertise side when it comes to adjusting your diet accordingly. But, maybe eat just a little bit less or work out just a little bit more. But that's why I have an issue with, like, these new workout programs or these new diets, because people try them for like 2 or 3 months and it doesn't work, so they go to the next. And I know you and I were just discussing that, but that's almost as big as an issue as us being here, is like the instant gratification. We don't have patience. We want it now. And I blame that on the internet, because, we had to wait like 10 minutes for dial-up back in the day. And ever since then, it's gone downhill because we have like pages loaded just like that. No, but yeah. So,
Yeah, so there are several things that kind of come to mind. I will say clients that I've worked with, some of them I've just done it for free just because I want to help people. And some of them I will actually charge them, because I got tired of working with people just out of my own free will, like the goodness of my heart. And then I will write them like a specific, I will write them a small booklet, program, lay out like dietary guidelines, and people will last like 3 days. And it's so frustrating. So ultimately, like, the most recent individual that I've helped is actually my brother-in-law. And he wanted to gain weight. And I just told him, like, listen, like, you have got to commit. I was like, I will check in with you. You have to own it though, because we want instant gratification. And we want something that, and we've talked about this before, like setting realistic expectations, because we'll see a magazine that's all photoshopped and airbrushed, and it's like, oh my gosh, it says that I can have this body in 6 weeks. And it's like, well, you're 52 pounds overweight. Do you think that's actually going to happen in 6 weeks? Why don't you just do the math on that?
Well, not only that, and not to interrupt you, but the other side of that is these people, bro, they do this 8 hours a day. They work out 2-3 times a day. Most of them have time to meal prep, buy their own food, make all their own food, prepare it, get healthy stuff. They have the money and can afford that, or they have chefs. And
Exactly.
On top of that, you know, a lot of these guys and even girls now are, you know, enhanced, you know, so, you know, not only by airbrushes, but by, you know, things and needles and pills and stuff. So that's another thing is like, we got to be realistic. And if we're spending 12 hours a day, you know, working a job outside of working out, you know, you're going to look like what you put in, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. So basically how I will start with people, no matter where they're at, I've found this to work as long as they are committed to working. And I'm not going to take credit for this, but I've been doing it so long, I actually don't know when I kind of put it together and where I pieced it together from. But what I had people start doing was I had them pick 3 to 5 things that they could do every single day. And these are not things that are super complicated. It's like, okay, you don't drink any water on a daily basis right now. Can you make a commitment to one of your things, have 1 8-ounce glass of water? And people are like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. Do you want 6? It's like, right now you consume 3 liters of like between soda and coffee a day. I want 8 ounces of H2O. Okay. It does not need to be complicated. It has to be a baby step. And so I'll have them pick 5 things. What are 5 things that you know that you, or if that's too much, pick 3. Pick 3 things that you know you can do on a daily basis. And what this ends up doing is most people are like, oh, I'll do 5, because everyone has, to quote Jim Windler, or to paraphrase him, everyone has champagne expectations and beer realities. Like everyone thinks that they have the discipline of a Navy SEAL and a Spartan and a Marine rolled up into one, but when that 4:30 alarm goes off, they're just a dad and they're just a husband, and that's okay. That's a good thing. You need to just be who you are. But what you'll end up doing if you pick 5 things, so like mine right now are 100 ounces of water a day, 4 meals a day, which is just what works out to me. I need to do something physically active. I don't necessarily have to work out, but even if it's just mobility or recovery work, I want to read or write, and I want to spend time with basically just being present with Ashley or with God. Those are the things that I'm going to put my phone away. I'm not going to be distracted. I'm just going to be present. Those are my 5 things. So let's say there's a day that I get 70 ounces of water, I eat 3 meals, but then I do the other 3. Well, I still have a passing grade. It's not as good of a grade, but the day wasn't a failure. And when you start stringing those days together for a long period of time, it starts to add up. So yeah, you don't need to do anything super complicated. I highly encourage people to prep food, and you don't need to go on Pinterest and find the most extravagant meal. My meals are like, when my coworkers have laughed at me for the last few years because they're so simple, and they're like, don't you get bored of them? It's like, well, no, not really. Like, what, after you kind of get past that initial hump that I just need to eat to feel good or eat to satisfy like my taste buds or whatever, it ends up being fine. But I think the other thing that kind of comes to mind is when you start talking to people about diets, or when you start talking to people about training or exercise, you say diet and they immediately hear like the most extreme, all they picture is just like salad and, and one tomato on it with like one little teaspoon of olive oil. That's what they picture. And it's like, no, we're talking about restricting maybe one aspect, cutting one thing out. And so that is something that kind of needs to, I think, be articulated. And unfortunately, that's part of the programs that are being sold. I knew that we'd be talking about diets today, so I just just jotted down diets off the top of my head that I could think of, and I came up with almost 25 different diets that all claim like they're all espousing different things. It's crazy.
What are a few that you think are some of the most popular, that are the most ridiculous? Is it specific ones, or is it just like pretty much all?
I mean, right now, that's one thing about the fitness industry. A lot of this stuff is not new. So, right now, what's that?
I said hence keto, ketogenic diet.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
used to be called Atkins. It was just slightly different, but
I think, yeah, because years ago, a guy named Ori Hofmeckler wrote The Warrior Diet. And I'll just say, this is sound like anything. I have the book. I've read the majority of it. I've got what I needed out of it. And I was like, I got it. I'll describe it to you. Basically, what you do is you're going to not really eat till the nighttime, and you have a few hours that's when you like eat all of your meals. Does that sound like anything right now?
yes.
Exactly. So, that's something that's just an example. Or like, yeah, Atkins and keto. It's like this stuff just recycles like every 10 or 15 years.
I mean, that's all of humanity. I mean, even movies and songs and everything's essentially recycled. I mean, there's nothing like new.
Yeah.
And for all the nerds, by the way, that are gonna try to say something about Atkins and keto, first of all, I get it that keto is more fat-based. If you actually study it, it's highest percentage of food is fat, then protein, then a little bit of carbs, if any. And yes, I understand Atkins is basically all protein with a tiny bit of fat and basically no carbs. But essentially, you cut carbs out and you lose weight. So that's the idea. I know with the ketogenic diet, you go into ketosis and stuff, but
yeah, they're not drastically different. I mean, people that are on the keto diet would probably get their underwear all bunched up if you compare it to Atkins.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, but as someone who's hundreds of pounds overweight, or even 70, 50, if they do either one of those, they're gonna have success.
Well, yeah, and I guess to answer your question, if there's one that immediately comes to mind, ultimately, I don't think carbs are as necessary. I don't think you need to do the keto diet or do Atkins or anything like that. You just probably need to eat less carbs, and they need to not come from a box or a bag. That's pretty much like what I think it would solve so many problems for the majority of the people that are like struggling with their weight. It's like, nah, you just need to cut back on carbs and or calories.
Yes.
But yeah, as far as one that I think is a huge joke, personally, I think veganism is like just treason to me. And I can say that because Ashley and I did it we did it for like 6 months, close to 6 months. And that's also going in line with the fact that neither of us eat gluten, because not like it legitimately causes problems for us. I would love to eat gluten so badly, but it legitimately will cause issues. So, Yeah, I think veganism is being pushed right now. There's documentaries out about it, and it's very tough for me to stay quiet about it. But it just goes, it's a reminder to me that in the fitness industry, everything's a pendulum. Either like jogging is good for you, or like running is good for you, or it's terrible, or stretching is good for you, or it's the worst thing ever, or
Yeah.
it's like fats are the enemy. Oh, you should eat a diet. Not until you're trying to do something productive with your phone that you have like 90 different texts and phone calls. But um, yeah, I guess that's something else that I think also should probably be touched on, is the fact that it does not have to be anything extreme. Like you don't need to become a Buddhist monk
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
with diet. It like just one thing that would help so many people is if they just prepared food ahead of time. Like if they prepped meals, or even if they just made dinner, like made larger quantities, larger portions of dinner. That way they would have leftovers for lunch. And then,
Yeah.
like, most people eat, like, as long as you're not eating fast food or eating out, like snagging a pizza or something, like your dinner normally is at least decent. You have a protein source. Like a lot of people still have fruits and veggies, and then most people, the majority of their dinner comes from carbs. But even just having a solid meal that's real food, I think would help people tremendously.
Yeah. And I think the idea of one thing that I think is silly that people need to get out of the mindset of is meal timing and nutrient timing,
Yeah.
um, and how it affects your metabolism. I used to think that way, but at the end of the day, the solution to all of this is burn more calories than you put in. And
Yeah.
in reality, dude, like now, whether I'm working a 40-hour week or a 65, 70-hour week, there's days I skip meals, and that's okay. I don't encourage that. I think being consistent and having meal times set up is good, but that's not like there's not a machine in your body that, like, if it's fed smaller amounts more consistently throughout the day, that it's going to speed it up, or if you only eat one meal a day with the same amount of calories, it's going to slow it down. Like, just burn more than you bring in. And
Yeah.
it's okay, like, for people who can be disciplined and get into that habit where they eat better and are a little physically active, it's all right to skip a meal. um
Exactly. Yep.
and that's what people need to know, is it's okay, and the meal timing thing's a whole nother ballgame. But
Yeah.
so
Well, and yeah, there's, even as we're talking, we're brushing over some different things, because yeah, we could talk about becoming insulin resistant, we could talk about
hmm,
nutrient timing, we could talk about all these different things, and it's like, man, it's hard to just let it go and just hit big points. But most people, it really doesn't need to be that complicated. Like as you progress and as you get better or more advanced, things become more difficult. So, like, I'll use one family member of mine. Um, their first step in any diet that they've done is they just cut soda out,
yeah,
and boom, like 5 to 10 pounds gone. And then like they'll do that for a few weeks and they'll add something else in, and then get a few more pounds, and then they'll add something else in, or take something away. The problem is, or a problem, at least one that I've seen so many times, is that it like this time of year, or maybe like several weeks ago, I guess, um, everyone wants to like start a new diet plan. Like, okay, this is the year. 2019 is the year I'm going to be ripped by summer. And so they go on these insane regimens, and they last like 2 days or 2 hours or 2 weeks at most. I think it's 2 weeks is the average time. Like by like 2 weeks into the new year, almost all New Year's resolutions are done. They've been broken, which is sad. And that touches on what you're saying about just discipline and commitment and wanting the next thing. Because we try the next thing. We'll try like green tea extract, and we'll try like, oh, I'm gonna take some apple cider vinegar to help my metabolism or whatever. And we want all these different things when in fact fitness as a whole is really cheap. It's something that you already own. You already have the ability to be fit, to be in good shape, to be healthy. It's not something that you have to go buy. It's not something that you need to wear. You don't need to wear a certain thing to be more fit. You don't need to buy a supplement to be more fit. It really comes down to making wiser choices over the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Hey, so I say that should be a wrap. I do want to touch on some other things soon, though. So there's a lot to this, whether it's talking about the obesity crisis, really, or going into like nutrient timing or insulin resistance, whatever you want to get into. But yeah, thank you for coming on, dude. I appreciate it, and your insight is always phenomenal. So yeah, I appreciate it. Alex, if you have not like and subscribe my YouTube channel as well as everyone else, because I'm not doing this for the money. I could care less. I have plenty of money right now. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm passionate about this stuff. Alex, I know you are too. And at some point, I'd like to do this full time to be able to encourage people, educate people, and help impact people's lives. So